McLaren had an unusual yet ultimately successful weekend in Bahrain. Despite some peculiar moments, the overall mood within the team was overwhelmingly positive, especially as they celebrated their first ever victory at the Bahrain Grand Prix, a meaningful win in front of their Bahraini stakeholders. Team CEO Zak Brown was visibly thrilled, bursting with energy like he'd just hit the jackpot. Oscar Piastri, cool and composed as always, was equally elated, treating the win with the same intensity he had after his crash in Australia. The team pulled off a brilliant result, securing a double podium with a P1 and P3 finish, extending their lead over Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. However, beneath all the celebration, Lando Norris's weekend raised a few eyebrows. On paper, climbing from P6 to P3 doesn't seem like a bad performance at all. But when you look closer at how he got there, and the number of mistakes along the way, and it paints a more concerning picture. From the very beginning of practice, Oscar appeared to have the upper hand. During FP3, which took place in warmer conditions that suited the McLaren car well, Piastri was a staggering 0.6 faster than Norris and 0.8 quicker than Charles Leclerc. When the temperatures cooled down for qualifying in the race, the performance gap between the teams narrowed slightly, giving Mercedes a bit more of an edge. Even so, Oscar took an emphatic pole position and delivered a flawless race. Before the safety car, he had built a 7.5-second lead over George Russell. And by the checkered flag, that had grown to an incredible 15.5 seconds. A total of 23 seconds ahead of anyone not named Piastri. In short, he dominated. At this point, it's almost undeniable. Piastri isn't just a potential contender for the championship, he might now be the clear favorite in many fans' and pundits' eyes. Meanwhile, Lando admitted he was struggling all weekend. Although finishing third might not sound too bad, both his performance and body language raised concerns, especially considering we're only 4 races into the season. He underperformed in qualifying, landing in 6th behind the Mercedes cars, Ferrari, and even the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Before the lights even went out, he made a costly error, stopping beyond his grid box and earning a 5-second penalty. Lando himself called it a really stupid mistake. Despite that setback, he had an excellent launch, jumping from P6 to P3 on the opening lap. But after serving his penalty and during the safety car restart, things got shaky. Even with fresher tires and better pace than rivals like Leclerc and Russell, Norris looked tentative in direct battles, locking up into Turn 1 and often choosing poor lines into Turn 4, which had become a key overtaking zone if approached correctly through Turns 1 and 2. In the end, his P3 finish masks a weekend of inconsistency. While the result looks solid on paper, the performance behind it was far less convincing. Hold on, did you know that 99% of you watching right now aren't subscribed? If you enjoy my content and want to see more, please hit that subscribe button. It takes just a second, but it means the world to me and helps keep this channel going. Join the family and let's grow together. Now back to the story. One of Lando Norris's biggest challenges right now is that the McLaren MCL39 simply doesn't align with his preferred driving style. The car behaves differently depending on conditions. In cooler weather, McLaren struggles to generate temperature in the front tires, which makes initial grip harder to find. However, in warmer conditions, like those during the Bahrain race, the car benefits from more consistent tire wear and less thermal degradation, which helps overall race pace. Lando has always favored an aggressive approach on corner entry. He likes to brake late, ride the brakes deep into the corner, and occasionally launch the car over curbs. As long as the front end has enough grip and responsiveness, he can carry speed into the apex and manage any instability on the exit. But McLaren's current setup leans toward a more neutral balance, especially on turn-in, which caters more to Oscar Piastri's smoother, more controlled inputs. You can see this clearly in Oscar's pole lap, where his calm and measured steering allowed him to get on the throttle early, especially out of slow and medium-speed corners, which is where he gained most of his time. The crux of the problem for Lando is a fundamental mismatch. He tries to extract lap time on entry, using a car with a front-heavy aero setup. But the MCL39 rewards a balanced approach that focuses more on the exit. If he brakes less aggressively to suit the car, he's simply too slow. But when he does push to his limits, the car doesn't rotate the way he needs it to. This leads to mid-corner understeer or late-corner oversteer when he's overdriving to compensate. Lando has been candid about these struggles since pre-season testing. He spoke after Australia, China, and again in Bahrain, about how the car often feels disconnected from his natural style, especially during qualifying when extracting those final tenths demands confidence on turn-in. While McLaren's current package boasts excellent downforce and tire management, the lack of front-end bite leaves Lando feeling disconnected and uncomfortable when trying to push for peak performance. He even admitted early in the season, "It doesn't suit me in terms of wanting to push entries and push braking. It's very weak from that point of view, not what I like." But he's also acknowledged the need to adapt. "Some of it is on me. I need to adjust my driving style. The car this year is very different from what I had a few seasons ago. Back then, we were fighting at the back, and now we're near the front. Things have changed." The core issue is compromise. To get more front-end grip at mid-corner, they'd have to sacrifice performance in low-speed or high-speed sections, or even due to wind sensitivity. It's a delicate balance, and McLaren has yet to find a sweet spot that works equally well for both drivers. But what stood out most in Bahrain wasn't just Lando's on-track difficulties, it was his body language off the track. After qualifying, his demeanor was visibly deflated. His interviews were short, his tone subdued, and his voice barely audible. At one point, he even said, "It feels like I've never driven a Formula One car before." It was tough to watch, not just as a driver struggling for form, but as someone clearly wrestling with confidence and frustration. Drivers are often their own toughest critics, and Lando Norris is no exception. His demeanor after Bahrain felt reminiscent of a young Charles Leclerc, who used to be brutally self-critical after mistakes. But with Lando, it sometimes feels like he takes the disappointment too personally and struggles to move on as quickly as he needs to. Oscar Piastri, by contrast, is incredibly composed. Even when he's frustrated or things don't go his way, you'd never know it from his body language or interviews. That mental composure makes him more stable, more consistent, whether he's on the podium or outside the points. Now, it's not fair to tell a driver to hide their emotions. Lando should always be himself. Authenticity breeds confidence, and confidence is what allows a driver to perform under pressure. But there's also a balance. Being too hard on yourself, too negative, can start to chip away at that very confidence you need to succeed. Drivers like Hamilton or Leclerc have mastered the art of compartmentalizing. They know how to process the disappointment, box it away, and still come into the Grand Prix with a clear mind. That's something Lando still needs to develop. And hopefully the people around him are helping him do that, reassuring him when he needs it, and keeping his focus on the bigger picture. Because here's the reality. Lando is still leading the championship. He's still driving what many believe is the fastest car on the grid. And he's still one of the most naturally gifted drivers out there, more than capable of becoming world champion. But with Oscar continuing to improve and arguably starting to edge Lando at his own team, this dynamic within McLaren could define the early phase of the season. Lando has to take the lead, both in terms of development and setup, and help shift the car's balance closer to what suits his driving style. If he doesn't, Oscar will keep building momentum and exploiting every crack in Lando's mental armor. So the battle is on, not just on track, but behind the scenes at McLaren. And if Lando wants to stay in control of that fight, he's going to have to evolve. As for what comes next, only time will tell. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow, and I'll catch you in the next one.